Okay, I'm back for the final part of the three-part series on my final thoughts of the election and the candidates. Now, first part I elaborate on the Republican side, and then part two, I'm sorry, I'm trying to give equal time. I elaborate more on the Democrat side. And so now this is my final thoughts, in my opinion. Like I said in my previous videos, you don't have to agree with me. My verdict is that I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I didn't vote for Clinton either. I didn't like the idea that both of them that were running for the presidency were friends at one time. So I feel like both candidates are very corrupt. They have bad, both polarizing either way. So I voted a third party. I voted for Jill Stein because I feel like a woman was very representative. But I find out a couple years later that Jill Stein was actually a little more supportive of Trump. So it's kind of like I gave my vote to Trump in some ways. And I kind of regret I should have held my nose high and voted Clinton. Because Hillary Clinton had some good strengths to her. Very smart woman, and I think Bill Clinton has a good wife there. For her to deal with Bill Clinton cheating on her like that. No, don't disrespect the 42nd president, but I just feel like what I didn't like about the former Secretary of State was her approach, how to deal with the criticisms and everything, and I just feel like she took things for granted when she should have been on top of her game and everything. But she tried. I mean, I give her effort, A for effort. But this is not what that's about. But I just give you a little reason, backdrop. This time around, I'm definitely not going to go third party candidate, even though I'm independent. So I picked the side. Well, I've already voted. I did early voting in New York on Thursday. So I'm pretty proud of it. So anybody can go out there and early vote and register already. I recommend early voting. I was going to do mail-in voting, but looking at it, you have to go online or call or whatever to get your ballot, and then you got to postmark it, and there's a lot of controversy going on about mail-in votes. And now one side, the Republicans, of course, are trying to dispute all these mail-in and ballots, like in Pennsylvania and Florida and wherever. And there's in the news that they're putting in drop-off boxes of their own without authorization, and then they're spying on the Biden campaign, putting cameras there, and God knows whatever. There was even an incident where somebody set one of the drop boxes on fire. I'm like, what? WTF, So I got thinking about all this craziness going on, and I said, I want to make sure my vote counts. So I went down to the Board of Elections in my county, and I early voted because I was already registered. So I'm not saying people shouldn't do it, but there's so many different steps you have to do. You have to put it in one envelope, then another envelope, and do it this way and that way. And I think the Board of Electors needs to come up with a better way with mail-in ballots. And most of all, not be putting, the news media needs to inform it in a way that's going to be private, but it's tough in this day and age with 24/7 social media. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Final thoughts. Honestly, I really wanted to give the Trump administration a chance, which I did. And I feel like being a veteran, yeah, it's, okay, so they reformed the veteran, they did they did some things to help the vets, um, but it still hasn't changed my mind about what he said about McCain. I don't know the full story, but when he did that back in 2015, um, yeah, he lost my vote because of that. And then for him to make them comments about the women, and it's just his rhetoric is the main turnoff deciding point. Because it's one thing you're doing all these good things, but it's another thing people look at words too. And if your words have substance and they have consequences, some people it's very hurtful. And if you're going to be a good leader and you want people to look up to you, you have to be selective with your words. And being president of the United States, even though I don't know anything about it, my experiences with people and being friends with them, sometimes you have to hold back, because people have had bad experiences verbally. So words do matter, and that I just don't want to have to go through another 4 years of that. Trump had his chance, and he's done a few good things, but not enough. I mean, he says, "Oh, he's a good example of substance." He says he's going to protect the environment, and then what he does? He goes and he starts trying to do away with the protections in the Arctic, or the timber in Canada, the areas that we own. And yeah, it's good you want to build up the economy there, but good economies come and go, We only have one planet to live on, and that's Earth, until we can colonize. But I had a science teacher one time tell me it's good to explore, but if you don't take care of the current planet that you live on, you pollute it and destroy it, you shouldn't go to other planets. You need to take care of the current planet that you live on and manage it better. So I took a lot of that when I was in high school from my science teacher, that protecting the environment, and it's like living in a house, You want to manage it as best as possible, because you only get a certain amount of room and space to live on. Well, it's the same way with Earth. We have to take care of our water. As more people come into the planet and the resources become limited, we have to preserve it for generations to come. If we're not going to go explore space, this is the only planet we live on. And if we don't take care of it, we're bound to become extinct ourselves. So I just don't think the Trump administration really understands that. It's all about money to them. And some things in life is not about money, it's about quality of life. So I think when you look at Biden's record and you look at Trump's record, Biden has a better success rate in getting things done and backing his words up with action, sticking in and being consistent. And I think Trump, he's a horrible manager. And I've worked with bad management before, private sector, places like Walmart and fast food when I was a kid. And I'll tell you, there's some bad managers out there, and I think Trump is not good at managing things. He's horrible at it. I think I would have rather have Trump as vice president and Pence as president, because I think Pence would have took. I don't blame Trump for the virus. I blame him for the mismanagement and not taking things seriously. And even Fauci's not perfect, but he knows his stuff. And I thank Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx for doing the best they can. And the thing we need to do is not be ostracizing them, but complimenting them and accommodating them. And Trump failed to contain it, and he's politicizing it. You know, he's blaming Whitmer, Governor Whitmer of Michigan, you know, because she's a Democrat. And that's not how you're going to win your cause. You're going to lose, you know, and he's losing. Even if he gets a second term, he's always going to be remembered as very dictator-like. He's miserably failed in terms of respect, and I just think the country's going to be better off with Biden. We need a leader right now that's going to heal things, not keep things the way they go. I mean, there's always going to be pockets of people that are going to resist. Like, I'm sure in Japan, they still got Japanese nationalists that want to go back to the imperial way of things. A small minority. I could be wrong, but there's going to be people that want to go back to the old way of things because they don't like change. People are afraid of change. And then there's people like me that I've learned to accept change because that's how life grows. It goes in cycles. People have to evolve. You can't stick to the... I mean, you could stick to a certain amount of beliefs and things like that, but in terms of society progressing, I think it's good to moderate. This whole thing with racial justice and law and order, and it's long coming. And if we don't address it, it's going to come back again. It's going to get worse and worse. So, you know, somebody in my family stated, unless you've been a police officer, you have no right to judge. Well, this is just my opinion. And I feel like I'm not putting all the cops in there because they got a tough job. So, right, I have no right to judge. But when I see a cop or 10, 15 cops with guns, and there's one guy that has a knife, and then because the guy's swinging a knife, you know, you got a bunch of people there with guns. So why use your gun? Just apprehend the guy. Get 4 or 5 people and just go right in there and tackle the guy down enough to get the knife out of the hand. That's an example. So just pulling guns out and shooting a guy or the person. It has to change, you know, training techniques, and you know, if we don't do it now, it's going to be addressed later. So why not correct it and make it better now and build on it, you know? I had a pastor one time say, if you don't learn from history, you're forced to repeat it again. So we had riots back in the 60s, now we got riots again. Because why? We didn't learn from it. We had riots in the 90s and we didn't learn from it. Now it seems like it's every 30 years this happens. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that things right now are really bad. They seem grim and gloomy and everything, but I've lived long enough to know that, and I've read history, that we've gotten through Great Depressions, we've gotten through world wars and pandemics. We'll get through this. We just got to work together. And that's why I think, for me anyway, I feel like if Trump gets reelected, I can live with it. I'm not going to be happy about it, but I can live with it.